What is it?
Well, it's called a randomizer, and it's fitted to the guidance systems and operates under a very complex scientific principle called potluck. Now, no one knows where we're going. Not even the Black Guardian.
Not even us.
Hello and welcome to the Randomizer Podcast, episode 10.
I'm Charles.
And I'm Tim. Hey, we mixed that up without even planning
Hey.
it. Woo! Yeah, it's the end of the first series.
So
at
we've
least.
been allowed to bring in games.
Yeah, you hate games.
Some of them.
Just my games. Okay.
Yeah, just your games.
As usual, a spoiler warning for the latest Doctor Who episode, The Timeless Children, and indeed for all Doctor Who that preceded it, which is, of course, now ruined.
More of that later.
We will also be discussing a rumour about future casting of the show. We'll flag that up so you can skip ahead when we get there, if you don't want to hear it. And a spoiler too for the upcoming National Lottery draw. So, on to The Timeless Children. Even though Connor isn't here this week, he has sent us an email. We have correspondence, which is very exciting. And actually, since he was by far the most erudite of us last week, I thought we should let him lead off. So, this is what he sent. I know you didn't ask for it, but on the topic of The Timeless Children, it was an enjoyable and engaging episode throughout, with some really interesting concepts explored. The Master and the Cybermen stuff was excellent, even if killing a Shad off so abruptly was upsetting. And the Cyber Masters were beautifully designed. While having the Doctor behind the Timeless Child was literally the easiest solution to the mystery, it adds new layers and infinite potential to the Doctor. The mystery behind the character is back. For fans of a show that has survived so long by making itself based around the concept of constant change, Doctor Who fans really do seem to hate the idea of any change at all. I don't believe their outrage to be justified when you think about it for more than a minute. Lore has not been destroyed, it's been expanded. Nothing has been taken away from the character. The Doctor's still the Doctor, and William Hartnell's still the first Doctor. As it stands, Ruth's character still hasn't actually been placed in the timeline. There's still a lot more to uncover. People need patience. The story could end up being that William Hartnell's Doctor was the first to free himself from Gallifrey and go off into the universe on his own terms, as his own person. And if you ask me, that makes his character, and him being the first Doctor, even more impactful. And also, thank you, Dad, for the gift of life. Can I borrow 20 quid? Let's talk about the many ways that he's wrong.
Well, what can I say? Good God, Igor, what have I created?
I think I agree with most of it, to be fair.
I agree in part with most of it. I'm always interested in what Connor's got to say about things because he is very eloquent. He gets his point across very well. My take on it is that it's a bit of a mess, but I'm just going to sort of go, yeah, alright, fair enough, and continue watching the show.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered in the sense that I'm going to get out my tree about it. I did hear someone describe this whole thing as Chibnall really wanted to put his mark on the show. Unfortunately, his mark was a shit stain, which I actually
So my mind had gone to a dog cocking its leg at a lamppost, but there you go. I think I genuinely quite enjoyed the episode on its surface, and then the more I think about it, the more I'm kind of going, oh God, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
I'm going to go big general stuff first and then dive into some specifics, because for me, I actually like the new lore that's been added. I think Connor's bang on there. I think it nicely packages off all the Gallifrey stuff, and you have another central mystery set earlier than all the Gallifrey stuff now. I think that's enjoyable, that's interesting.
I think that the mystery that's been created is dull and boring compared to the mystery we had before. The Doctor's origins were very ambiguous, and I never wanted to
But hang on, when
know.
you say before...
I'm talking about before this episode.
But there was a lot of...
What?
There was almost no mystery before this episode.
Well, there was. How wasn't there?
What was it?
The show's called Doctor Who. We never knew where the Doctor... We knew supposedly it came from Gallifrey, and that was basically it. There was allusions to other things, but it was never explained. This technically explained everything. I didn't see the need for this. I just thought it was a question that nobody wanted answering.
Well, there's a weird relationship with this mystery that we all hold up so highly that, you know, we kind of want to tease at it. It's quite nice when little dribbles of things come out, like the Cartmel hints in Sylvester McCoy's season, but if anybody dares actually tell a story about it, they're hung from the nearest lamppost.
I don't understand why there's a need to. Don't go there. It's not necessary. That's all.
None of it is necessary.
As far as I'm concerned, that's incredibly fucking boring.
Let me lay it out.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting very far. So we have all the kind of messy Gallifrey lore that's been seeded in throughout the years has now been sort of wrapped up into a bundle. and put to one side of a key event, and that event is the Timeless Child, the Doctor, coming through this mysterious portal. So we have a lot of mystery now in terms of what's on the other side of that portal and who or what the Doctor was before that. Now, whether or not the show will go there is another open question. I think for me, the thing is that I don't have any problem with all of this stuff, and thinking about it narratively, I find it quite interesting. But the delivery of it and the impact of it and the execution of it, I thought was really poor.
Yeah.
I don't think anything should be off the table. I don't think anything's unnecessary in that sense, but I do think that Chibnall generally does not have the skill to do it well.
I take your point on that. You know, I mean, I suppose I agree in that sense. If they'd have done this and done it well, or at least committed more, because it just felt like some half-assed piece of fan fiction.
Well, it's a big revelation for no good reason other than to be a big revelation. The Master throws it in the Doctor's face, and then there's this tiny little wobble of confidence before Dr. Ruth, who is so badly served in this episode, pops up just to say, hey, what does it matter? And the Doctor's like, you know what, you're right. And then there's this really ugly scene with her saying, I'm better than you to the Master, and that sits really badly.
Do you know what that felt like? That did feel like Chibnall talking to the fans.
Playground, it felt like. I just would have loved to have seen something of this momentous import in the hands of somebody like Moffat or Russell T Davies, because they would have seeded it beautifully. They would have revealed it in a way that closed some circles, that meant there was a sort of satisfaction to it. There was a skill and a showmanship to it. Chibnall has none of this. It's just cemented for me the fact that this guy is not as,
he's middle of the road.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's awful. He's obviously, the stories are entertaining on the surface level, but they just have none of the depth and none of the panache and skill that we've been lucky to have, to be honest.
Absolutely. I think what it sums up for me is this entire era is that I'm watching the episodes, and generally I'm not particularly enjoying them, but they're okay. And the ones that I do enjoy, I'm really latching on to, but I'm really starting to come to the conclusion that the ones that I'm really liking are basically would have been, say, average within RTD or Moffat, and this is just, it's meh.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I'm enjoying the show by and large. Yeah. I like it existing. I think that the big events are spent like cheap shocks rather than delivered as kind of revelatory moments or anything that has a kind of a feeling of having been earned.
I enjoyed the last episode very much, and this episode, up until he said, you are the Timeless Child, I was really enjoying. I've not even got that much of a problem with the Doctor being the Timeless Child, but it's like, I akin this to, and this is a real leap, but go with me, I akin this to Sex and the City.
Okay.
I went to see the movie, the first one, with my friend Claire, and I think I was possibly the only guy in the theatre.
Okay.
Right? Now, there is a particular scene, spoilers if you haven't seen Sex and the City, Jesus Christ. Anyway, there's a particular scene where one of the main character's husbands reveals he's been having an affair. This was signposted from the first minute of the film. You would have had to have the fucking lobotomy not to realise that this character was having an affair. And he reveals it to her, right? And the entire audience went with that, and I just burst out laughing. And at that point, I've never felt so scared in my life, because 400 eyes just all focused on me as if to say, we're going to fucking kill you. You get the context I'm going for slightly here.
Yeah, slightly uncomfortable aspersions on the intellectual capacity
it's the reveal.
Of female cinema goers.
Well, maybe. The reveal of You're the Timeless Child was already fucking said in Ghost Monument.
Remind me now.
The Timeless Child. And then
there must have been some ambiguity, I don't remember.
I don't think there was any ambiguity about it personally. But anyway, you get that, and then you get reactions online. Oh my god, the Doctor, I'm thinking, seriously, am I watching a different fucking show here?
Maybe just very much cleverer than everybody else.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. I would definitely say that.
It wasn't like I didn't see it coming, but it also wasn't that I was 100% sure that was which way it was going to go. But by that point, all the options had narrowed down.
It was the simplest explanation, and it's usually always going to be the simplest explanation.
I don't know if Occam's razor applies to science fiction.
Yeah.
A very unsatisfying episode in that sense.
Yeah.
But in terms of what it adds to the canon, I'm enjoying it more than hating it. And I've been quite surprised surprised by some of the reactions. I haven't looked extensively. But...
The vitriol is fucking awesome. The thing is, right, now Doctor Who is important to many, many people. It's important to me. I've watched it since I was a child. I've made a lot of good friends, yourself excluded, sorry. And it's something that my son and I share and we have a lot of fun with. That's it. You know, you need to get a perspective.
Sure, people can wrap their identities up in their fandoms.
Yeah.
I think we can have a certain amount of compassion for people who are that invested in it. But that compassion extends only as far as their response is civil and coherent as well, I think.
Admittedly, there are people, they say things like, oh, it saved my life. You know, I know it's helped people through things like depression and stuff like that, and I'm not discounting that. That's very important, and I'm glad that a TV show or a book or something helps you. I don't discount that, but I just don't think that you can really have this sort of vitriol reaction.
It's ownership, it's entitlement. It's all these things of, well, this isn't being made for me anymore. And it's just ugly. And I'm glad to stay away from the most of it.
If you need something to take comfort from, Master is an unreliable narrator. He could have planted all these things to fuck with the Doctor's mind.
I don't want the get out. I want the show to do something interesting with this new territory that it's carved out. I'm not sure it will, because I'm not sure Chibnall's capable of it. Let's look at what the ground is now. You've got the area before the Doctor comes through the portal. So that's obviously now the new version of mysterious person from mysterious unnamed race of aliens. And in that sense, there is a huge amount of extra mystery potential in that. But then you've got the area between that and the new stuff about the experiments on the Doctor, the creation.
The loving mother that experimented on her child.
So you've got this new territory between the Doctor coming through the portal and then the Doctor in the form of the first Doctor leaving Gallifrey. And in that time, there's a lot of interesting territory to explore.
Of course, there was that interesting point that Connor made about, you know, the first Doctor could have been the first one to describe himself as the Doctor or to have escaped the Division.
I guess so. I think Ruth's looking very likely to fit into the Division era, if you like. And she's using the title The Doctor, so perhaps now there's a story to be told about the acquisition of that title during the Division. And also the relationship between the Division and the First Doctor is an interesting one. He escapes Gallifrey. Suddenly he's not just running away because he's bored, but maybe running away because there's this oppressive power. Because the other angle to look at the Division under is as a kind of an American CIA metaphor, because after all, the CIA is what they're supposedly replacing in Doctor Who lore. Yeah. But it's an all-powerful race sending agents out to muck around and interfere, often in underhand and, it seems, violent ways.
The way the CIA, of course, does.
Well, exactly. So the CIA is a jokey, clunky title for them. It's great that they're not called that anymore.
Yeah.
But the function still has strong parallels. Yeah. And that's ripe storytelling territory, I think.
Oh, I definitely think the whole idea of the Division is, for me anyway, it's about the only interesting thing that's came out of this.
So it would be interesting to see what the relationship is to that in the series going forwards, whether it touches that or whether we fly off into territory new, and we might do a bit of both. The problem I have with it, in terms of how it's been delivered, is it feels like it could go either way. It doesn't feel like this has been so earth-shattering that the Doctor has to deal with it and explore it, and we have to go there narratively. Because it was all shrugged off after the pep talk from Dr. Ruth. So it does feel like we could go off in new directions next time without necessarily having to go there. In which case, well, what was all the big fuss about?
There's one little thing, right? It's a sort of tangent. The whole thing where we see her doing that bit in the Matrix with fucking Doctor Who theme over it, which felt really bad. But we see the Brain of Morbius stuff now. I just don't get that. I genuinely don't get that. I've never understood why that when that was shown back in the 70s, people immediately thought, oh my god, there's been other Doctors, because that story is Morbius and the Doctor have a mind duel. Morbius loses the mind duel. It's the two of them going through their previous lives. So those were Morbius's lives. Otherwise, why did he lose if none of his lives came up?
No, you're retconning. Because
I'm fucking retconning!
You absolutely are. It was well documented that the production team's intention was to have a laugh, and these were other Doctors.
Oh, Jesus.
And the text of the show plays it that way. It's a very plausible retcon, but it's still a retcon that these were Morbius's. What? I don't know why you're laughing at me. This is not in dispute.
Yeah, but it's hard. Oh, God almighty. Just because Philip Hinchcliffe decided to have a bit of a laugh, people take this seriously.
Well, but that's part of the fun of it.
Oh, my.
And I'm kind of overjoyed that they're canon now.
Alright, that's fine. When does DWM do its Philip Hinchcliffe is the Doctor cover and Douglas Camfield is the Doctor?
Bring it on. Why not? That's another gap for Big Finish.
Oh my god, yeah, the Philip Hinchcliffe box set that came out could be retconned into, we'll get rid of Tom Baker and just put Philip Hinchcliffe there.
Anyway.
It's such a big pile of steaming wank.
Oh, I loved it though. It was just my sort of wank.
Fair enough.
I'd liked all of that, and people have done kind of montages showing all the Doctors that have been on screen in Timeless Children now. And that's fun. The accountant in us all enjoys it. Let's talk about some specifics. I quite liked the payoff of all the Brendan stuff, although it was kind of funny that it didn't go back there in any way.
Well, it was a sort of redacted memory. They put that as a skin or a filter over to hide the story, so it was quite a clever little reveal.
And I think it's interesting in sort of how allegorical it allowed itself to be. Although I think in retrospect I would have wanted a sense in the previous episode that the Doctor was somehow experiencing these Brendan scenes.
That's absolutely true. I did not for 1 second take that as this was, being broadcast into the Doctor's mind or anything.
Utterly separate.
It just felt, and that, again, that is poor writing.
Or at least just a choice that doesn't sort of chime well with the big revelation of why that choice was done. It's less elegant in terms of wrapping things together. I think overall I'm happy though. It wasn't a big mess. It opens lots of new doors for stories pre-Hartnell, and it restores mystery to the Doctor. I liked Graham and Yaz's scene, but this was Sacha Dhawan's episode.
Yeah.
And that's great for him. I think it's terrible for Jodie. She was very much a passenger.
Yeah.
It was nice when she took control at the end, but the other thing that really disappointed me was how little Ruth was used.
I'm really, really happy that some people enjoyed it. I'm actually more happy that people enjoyed it because of all the negativity that surrounds it, because you do need perspective and you need a bit of balance, so it's nice to, like Connor enjoyed it a lot more, you enjoyed it more, although, I think we all see some of the problems with it and the problems with the season.
So, well, let's give it the Chaz test though. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's maybe all we need.
Exactly. I certainly didn't hate it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a laugh.
This could be the tagline for the Chibnall era. I certainly didn't hate it.
Yay! That's an up.
We will damn with faint praise.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, I didn't see what the Lone Sideman was doing in the previous episode when he opens the caskets on the troop carrier. Why is he just welding the warriors and making them scream for show?
From what I can tell, he is basically taking their humanoid parts out because he wants all the Cybermen to be fully mechanical. This is why he has this death particle that he's obviously had for ages but decides to mention at the very last minute.
Who named that?
Oh, it's fucking terrible. I mean, also, the continuity with that whole fucking death particle is pathetic. Earlier in the episode, they're basically saying it will wipe out all organic life, and then they retcon it within the episode to say all organic life, on a planet. I mean, the whole point is, if the thing is to wipe out all organic life, then if that's the case, you're going to need, 100 billion death particles to go to every planet individually?
Maybe it just takes a long time.
Oh, fuck.
It just sort of drifts through space. So, on the neighbouring planets, like, we've got 7,000 years, guys.
Jesus.
Let's pack our toothbrushes.
Utter fucking wank.
Weird. But yeah, complete MacGuffin. And I really, really deplored both the editing, the pacing, and the fact of how the Doctor was rescued. Because, it's like he turns up, he's like, I'm going to save you. And that's lovely in itself. It's satisfying. But there's several axes to criticise this on. There's the old white guy rescues female Doctor. But I'm not, it's fine. Character rescues character. That's all very noble. The one that really pisses me off is Master and all-powerful Cybermen stand around doing nothing for 2 minutes.
Give them a few seconds.
It's like, you'll have your big moment. Again, I was talking about narratively aware doors. This is narratively aware villains.
David Legg had commented on that particular thing. He thought the old guy was going to be Rassilon, and he thought it would have been interesting if you hadn't seen his right hand until near the end, and it's the silver glove thing.
Oh my god!
You know?
Yeah, it's the Phantom Hand.
Yeah,
That's what it could be.
It appears again.
I think he had the gravitas as a character that makes you expect something more. And that's slightly disappointing, I suppose, internally, because maybe that's not enough to just have a character who has internal gravitas anymore.
I mean, he even had the look, didn't he? He had the windswept thing with the big staff. He was fucking Gandalf.
The Cyber Time Lords, they were kind of awful. Something just kept flip-flopping in my brain about them. The colours, I was like, and then the mouths, the sad mouths. I mean, for fuck's
Not
sake.
just that, the fucking robe. They had robe socks. No, I heard that over a year ago.
Really? God.
Seriously, the Cyber Time Lords, and somebody had done a
think it was a
drawing with the whole collar, and my reaction to that was, oh, no fucking way is that going to happen. And when it actually happened, I nearly fucking choked on my tea. It was so funny.
They missed a huge trick. When they demonstrates the regenerative power, it should have turned into a different era of Cyberman.
Should have turned into a Dalek.
No, it should have gone Mondas.
Yeah, that would have been brilliant. Actually. I mean, that would have made that whole scene actually funny. In a sense of design, it looked interesting and nice, but I mean, as an actual concept, it was complete shit.
Oh, you're just going to snag your collar smashing through doors all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, you know what it's like? It's like a kid that
Doesn't
is
stop
making
with the Lego.
Yeah, the Lego, and then you decide to, I'm going to add a couple more guns on or something.
What this spaceship really needs is a rooftop swimming pool. I was really caught up in the moment of the big escape from the Matrix after the Ruth scene, and the Doctor kind of montages her way to freedom, and I liked that. I liked the Matrix montage, and the contents of it are fun and fan service and all of that. The Morbius Doctors are now canon, etc. I also wondered, this must be the most explicit use of the actual theme tune within an episode.
Well, yeah,
I liked it. You didn't. But it's an interesting cliffhanger. It is obviously an exact clone of the cliffhanger into, well, at least one David Tennant.
Nearly all David Tennant. He was in what? Yeah.
Well, there's got to be a term for like triple whatting or something.
Whatiker.
What the Jodie Whatiker. I love it. David What? No. No. I liked it. I thought it was fun. It was obviously derivative.
I'm looking forward to it. We've got a festive one coming up. We've got some Judoon. As long as it's fun.
Here's a thought.
Enjoyable.
This has literally just occurred to me. You've complained in the past about losing the Christmas Day slot, and I see your point about that. It was a great slot to have, but thinking about resolution now. Actually, we've talked about romps a lot, and we will continue to do so. It wasn't, it was dark. Not the darkest ever, but it certainly wasn't that kind of slight jocular tone that the Christmas episodes have had. So in that sense, I think there's a justification for keeping it clear of Christmas Day.
Well, you could say that, but End of Time wasn't particularly jocular.
Fair enough.
So you look at Christmas Carol, although it feels like a romp, it's not really. It's quite disturbing.
Well, do we want to talk about the season as a whole? Maybe we should do that next time.
I think would be better next time, because we've probably talked quite a lot about this, and it would be quite good to give an overarching view of the season.
We'll have a sort of season review next time, and shall we do a top 10? How many episodes were there? There were 10.
Oh, 10. Yeah, we can...
Well, definitely, they're all in my top 10.
We must ask the doctor.
Welcome, Dr Schultz. Now, I have been thinking about the chameleon circuit, because in the most recent episode, of course, we saw a TARDIS as a house and a TARDIS as a tree. So the chameleon circuit has been there since the get-go in the first episode ever of Doctor Who, where it gets stuck in the shape of a police box. But when TARDISes are functioning in full potential, they're supposed to be able to change to blend in with the surroundings. Now, it's been a sort of staple of a lot of speculative fiction and even spy fiction, the idea that you can have camouflage that's perfect. Stealth fighters, the James Bond car that blends into the background and becomes essentially invisible. But I wanted to know what the current state of play scientifically is with the idea of something instantly blending into its surroundings.
Well, of course, this is completely implausible.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz. I had not seen that angle on it before, so I really appreciate your time.
A man is the sum of his memories, a Time Lord even more so.
Now it's time for your Cheatin Memory, and this is the part of the show where we randomly select a Doctor Who episode and then talk about what we remember of it, and then go away and watch it and come back with fresh insight. Last time we chose the Christmas Invasion, and once more we've got comments Connor has sent in, so we're going to start with those. On the Christmas Invasion, There's two types of regeneration story. Having the Doctor energetic and straight into the action, or having them sleep off the regen. Choosing the latter for the story was a bold move, considering it was the first experience for the new or casual viewers, with perhaps the show's biggest and recurrent change, but thankfully it pays off. Like I said, having the familiar faces of Rose, Jackie, Mickey and Harriet Jones really helped aid the show into a new era, and David Tennant manages to come in and steal the show in its last 15 minutes, instantly becoming the Doctor, and taking part in an epic sword fight that ends with a sinister tone that this new Doctor won't be messing around. Where the Ninth Doctor hesitated in killing the Dalek last series, this Doctor doesn't. Oh, and by the way, that 20 quid, could it be 50?
Do you know, it's funny about what he says there about the last 15 minutes coming in and stealing the show, because basically Connor is more or less made me surplus to requirements. He's a much better companion for you than me.
Actually, Connor, can you email me and we'll sort of do the Randomizer podcast spin-off?
I actually totally agree with everything he said there.
You are redundant then.
Yeah, I am. The Christmas invasion is like a watershed moment in Doctor Who, because technically it is your first Christmas special, apart from Merry Christmas to you all at home. So it was big and it was bold, and I remember RTD saying he wanted a Christmas special to be a proper Christmas special, you know, with tinsel and everything. You had killer Christmas trees, killer Santas. A lot of fans, I remember at the time, having a go at Rose, saying, oh, she's lost faith in the Doctor and how dare she do this and how dare she be like that. Again, fans, or arseholes as I call them, seem to always forget is that this show had just come back. Now, I, you and them had been maybe watching it for a good 30 odd years, but the people that were watching it, the new viewers, didn't really know anything about Doctor Who, so their reaction would have been very similar to Rose's. You know, I don't like this new guy. Why has he changed? Well, you know, it might come across as slightly whiny, but I looked at it as very believable, because by the 15 minutes that he comes out, he wins everybody over. And I think that was very clever from RTD's point of view. He could have had the Doctor doing an 11th hour thing and come out fighting, but he did a Peter Davison thing. And that was at a point in the show where people had been watching Tom Baker for 7 years. So you don't have a big, massive, energy-filled episode. You have a slow introduction to a different Doctor. And this was a slow introduction handled beautifully by a genius showrunner.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's lovely stuff. The TARDIS crashing into the tenements on the way down was a really exciting entrance for it. First time I've seen it used that way.
Yeah.
It was great fun. I think the translation slowly returning, I remember being sort of gobsmacked in a great way by that when I watched it the first time. It's just great writing. It's, you know, really beautifully
really
made.
is.
The joy of that reveal, and then TARDIS doors open and there he is. It's just wonderful, wonderful television.
Brilliant. And he comes out all sort of immediately confident.
I mean, let's look at the skill here, because this is seeded through the episode. Rose's realisation of the loss of translation. And the series has used that translation as a gimmick. You know, it's been there when it's been useful, and indeed not there when it's needed to not be there. But now it's used explicitly and given such a brilliant payoff. It's built up to and it's earned. And so the rush of joy you feel when it's delivered, that payoff is immense. And that's what's missing now in Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who, is that kind of depth and that kind of satisfying kind of skill of doing all these payoffs. You get the kind of surface patterns of these things, you get the revelations, you get the big build-ups, but they're so much thinner, they're so much more superficial. And you know, it sounds like I'm relentlessly down on it. I'm enjoying the programme, but I know it can be so much more. And that's a shame. But anyway, back to this one. Other things that I scribbled down about this, there's an Arthur Dent reference, which always makes it a winner. Christmas tree shaped hole in the wall when it crashes.
It's wonderful. It's sort of, you know, it's a Wile E. Coyote thing.
And a cup of tea being the saviour of all is
isn't that so perfect?
Oh,
it's so British.
I know,
you know,
I
love RTE doing stuff like that.
The other thing I really enjoy in this episode is Daniel Evans, who is an actor and now director who I've worked with, and he's a lovely, lovely man, a brilliant, brilliant director, and I just enjoy his part in this so much. He gets the first ever "Yes, I know who you are" joke.
He's Llewellyn, yeah?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, he was wonderful.
And the first death of the Tennant era, really grisly as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that joke is... I know it's... I don't even think it's played out. I think it's such a great joke.
It just tiptoes right on that balance between absolute stupidity and fun.
Because you get it later with the Daleks.
Oh, yes,
we know who you are. I mean, so
the right to their
wonderful.
death, so it's fitting.
Absolutely one. And Penelope Wilton is so damn
I was
good.
so disappointed in her, in the character, in that ending, but it's such a powerful ending. It's really, really strong, and it's a knockabout rompy Christmas episode, and yet it doesn't end on that pure happy note.
Absolutely.
He has this moment of human complexity, and also it subverts this sort of dangerous, cozy relationship with the Doctor having a sort of friend in high places. And he uses sexism to bring down a government. The whole "you look tired" thing is a complete trope for female politicians.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
And so it's quite shocking. I mean, it's on the one hand, it's a kind of clever, very Doctor Who-y, I'll bring you down with one word, okay, no sex. Yeah. And that's really strong, but it's actually, the edginess of that in terms of the Doctor exploiting that.
Yeah, because I do remember something similar happened with Theresa May, sort of, undermining her sort of point about, she looked ill or this or that.
Yeah, and it's just the way that people tend not to talk about male politicians, and it's part of the horrendous, way that women in power are treated. And
I'd never actually thought it that
it's
way,
easy to
but
slip under the radar, I think.
You're totally right. The other thing I thought was very powerful about that is when they fire on the Sycorax retreating, it's such a metaphor for the General Belgrano during the Argentinian the Falklands, because of course Thatcher ordered the destruction of a retreating ship.
I think Harriet Jones's motives, I believe that they are honest, if you like, that she is concerned for Earth having to stand on its own 2 feet, rather than wanting to do this to show that she's a strong leader or to score political points.
She makes some very, very good points about the Doctor not being there all the time. It goes back to something in Torchwood, Children of Earth, when Gwen is doing the monologue to the video camera saying that the Doctor, is not always here, and sometimes when he's not here, she thinks he must be ashamed of us. So there is that argument, the Doctor can't be everywhere. He's not omnipotent, although he may well be. I think he's got something like 700 regenerations out there.
He's probably just tired writing all those birthday cards.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's really strong writing, and it's strong because you do understand Harriet's arguments and point of view. It's not just a power-crazed villain move, and that's why it's so disappointing, but also so understandable.
Of course, they did redeem her character in Journey's End.
Yeah.
It was a rather wonderful sort of way that she went out.
So I wasn't sure of the balance between Rose's sorrow that the Doctor won't save the world versus she has personally lost her Doctor. That big scene where she breaks down and hugs Jackie and says, "He's left me."
Yeah.
That is absolutely the language of breakup. And I guess what you're saying makes a lot of sense in terms of she's standing in for an uncertain audience faced with a new Doctor and the sort of the uncertainty and fear that brings. And I think it goes just a little too far. She's a little too disconsolate and therefore a little too won over when he sort of steps in at the end. I don't know. Well, it's very nitpicky.
For example, right now when Take That broke up years and years
You're
ago.
going to surprising places.
I really am,
Sex
yeah.
in the City.
But there was a helpline, and when Liz Sladen died, you had that whole thing on CBBC and the helplines and all that. So there was a lot of investment from a lot of younger kids in Doctor Who at that time.
You're right. It could be more compassionate.
It's like, the comparison being with the Timeless Children, adults acting like fucking kids is slightly different.
Maybe the Timeless Children is actually what they're acting like.
There was that sense of real loss when Rose left and everything, because that was the first companion leaving as well, so it was a big deal at the time. So
and how cheap it was when they brought her back.
Well, yeah, of course, but you're building the comfort zones.
I think it crosses the line when it's in that moment where it's the language of a lost boyfriend.
Yeah.
If it is there to be for younger viewers who are upset at the new Doctor, then you're couching it in the language of a sort of boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, not the kind of I've lost my best friend. Somebody says I've lost my best friend. Is that fatal death again?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I can't keep treating this as canon.
But see, the thing is that it felt over the top, but it felt over the top to me as an adult.
I think in the rush to finish the episode out with some pace, you lose instantly all of Rose's misgivings, and they felt so built up before that it feels a bit unconvincing that she's just like, yeah, it's all fine now. But then, Christmas episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I just have some very happy memories. Connor and I were like jumping on the sofa. When we got to Christmas Invasion, it's Christmas Day, obviously a very exciting day. Connor got a load of Doctor Who presents and everything. And then we had that to watch in the evening, and it was just made it such a magical time. And I just thought to myself, I've been watching this show since I was a kid. I'm now watching it with my kid, and this is so beautiful.
Doctor Who fans equivalent of taking your boy for his first pint or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. Okay, well, that was Christmas Invasion. I think it's time to fire up the randomizer and choose a new one.
Look, when I give the word, press the button. The big one? Yes, maybe it works in conjunction with the others.
What do you think? You serious? Okay, here we go. Standing by.
All right, well, let's try and find out. Now, what could it be?
The Space Pilot.
Oh my god!
Excellent. Not all of it is there.
There's only 2 bloody episodes.
We can watch the recon.
Oh god! Oh,
I've done it. I've done it once already. Come on, it's no mutants.
That is what I've been dreading. Unfortunately, through for the old series, is if we get like ones with missing episodes. I'll do it for this one and this one only. But there's no way I'm sitting through telesnaps and audio.
Imagine if you had to do it with time lash. I think it's not as bad as you think it is.
You know what's really disappointing about this is it's a Pat Troughton story, and I so fucking love Pat Troughton stories. Doesn't matter how shit they are, Pat Troughton's in them.
I did watch it in my watch through, obviously, in the early days.
I'll watch it.
Yeah.
Of course.
So what do we remember about it?
The runner or something on it was John Nathan Turner. It was the very first time he ever worked on Doctor Who.
There we go.
It's the penultimate story for Pat Troughton, and you've got Jamie and Zoe, and there are some space pirates in it.
What?
Yeah.
Spoilers.
And I know fuck all else.
I remember quite enjoying. There's a lot of model work of spaceships docking and space stations and so on. I think the first cliffhanger is pretty fun, but I won't go into too much detail so that you've got something to cling on to while you watch.
Well, the Klingons in it.
Yeah. Well, in the textbook case of Be Careful What You Wish For, we got some classic Who. Oh, you know the best part?
Wow.
When we review it, we can talk like this again, matey.
Oh, fucking hell.
I don't have a sonic screwdriver because I'm not off on a romp. I call it what it is.
A great loss of pomp and circumstance.
So I think that brings us neatly to Romp or Pomp, where we try to have a quick browse through the randomizer and decide if these are rompy or pompy stories.
Okay.
It's the first time we've done it with only 2 of us. So
That's true. I'm going to say Space Pirates is a romp. It's just a guess.
We have to decide that next week. All right, but we'll click the randomizer and we will see what we get. Praxius. It's quite rompy. I think it's sort of high stakes romp. I don't know. You were going to say something unflattering, weren't you?
No, it's a romp.
The Fires of Pomp, eh?
I don't know. It is a bit of a romp, but it's got a beautiful ending.
I think it's rompy. An Unearthly Child. Pomp. All Pomp.
Yeah.
Blink.
It's
definitely such fun, but it's not a romp.
Yeah, it's definitely Pomp.
Yeah. Genesis of the Daleks.
Oh,
that's Pomp.
Pomp.
That's Pomp.
Yeah.
Oh, Atmosphere all the way.
Great one.
World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls. Those are serious as well, aren't they?
God, they're brilliant.
Yeah, so not much romp this week. Come on, give us a couple of more and then we'll The Pyramid at the End of the World.
It's more sort of high stakes, I suppose.
Okay, a couple more. Dark Water, Death in Heaven.
Jesus.
High stakes is a serious randomizer.
Wow.
Okay, one more. In the Forest of the Night.
Oh, God, romp.
It's a bit rompy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit stupid as well.
And on that positive note, we will move on.
So here's your challenge.
So it's challenge time, and as you'll know, Chaz has been challenged by me to watch The Mutants, and then he's going to challenge me to watch something. But we've had a few mishaps along the way, so Chaz, have you watched it now?
Well, I need to hand you this this note.
Dear Mr. Reed, please excuse Charles from watching The Mutants. He has been unable to this week as he has been exposing himself to trees, and I'm trying to teach him a lesson. Signed, my mum. All right, next week then.
All these corridors look the same to me.
So this is Which Corridor Is This? Inspired by Rob Sherman and Toby Haydock's book Running Through Corridors, where they rewatch all of Doctor Who in order and then say nice things about it. So I've been rewatching the show, and in some cases watching it for the first time, and I am up to a classic Tom Baker era. I've just watched the horror of Fang Rot. It's a classic, rightly so. Dripping with wonderful atmosphere, the sort of base under siege meets lighthouse.
I think Louise Jameson stands out in everything she's in so far. She's so damn good.
I was worried about the character's kind of, strengths dropping away with successive authors writing for the character, but so far so good. She's still got...
I mean, we've got a few to go, so it's no doubt going to sort of lag a bit. The cast's really good. You've got the three lighthouse keepers.
Well, blink and you missed the first one.
Yeah,
the first
of course.
To go.
And
I think
then,
Vince looks like a young Michael Palin.
Yeah, he does a little. The only time, of course, we've ever had the Rutons.
Yeah, so they are the arch enemies of the Sontarans, for those who don't know.
The sort of blobs.
Green jellyfish, really.
Yeah.
The visual effects for the Ruton are a little hit and miss. There's some shots of the Ruton climbing the lighthouse and Tom Baker hanging out of a window, which sort of look a little fake to modern eyes, but otherwise the production design is gorgeous.
It's got, again, like Talons, it's got that Sunday drama feel to it, Tom Baker's absolutely shining in it, but he's at his sort of height at this point. I think
he's begun to play against the scenes in a way which gets deeper and deeper as he goes further. I'm going to sort of watch that trajectory with interest, because I think it starts off as a thing he does to unsettle the other characters, but then, if I'm remembering right, it sort of slips into almost a shtick that if a reaction would normally be sad, he'll go happy, and vice versa. But here I think it's still being wielded with skill and power. Yeah. One thing which did leap out at me was right at the end of part 3, when they realised that the Ruton can change its shape. He says, the chameleon factor. And it's like, what? I mean, it's chameleon factor, right?
Yeah.
So is this a fluff, or is this him being weird? I mean, should it be chameleon circus all these years? Is a chameleon a vegan chameleon? But I think also some of the characters could have done with a little more depth, like Adelaide in particular. Her death is really poorly directed as well, because we don't really see how the Ruton gets her. We cut from one scene with the Ruton coming in the door in the shape of Reuben, and then next time we're back in that room, he's got her already. The small criticisms I have, I did get a sense of the director or the editor cutting around maybe the limitations of the effects and the budget. It's a lovely story. I've enjoyed watching it very much, and I'm on to The Invisible Enemy next, which I will talk about once I've completed the story.
Space Prawn!
Yeah!
Predictable as ever, Doctor.
You shall die for this!
Okay, it's time for Doctor by Doctor. So we're basically selecting a doctor at random and talking about their era. Simple as that. You want to pick this one, Chaz?
Yeah, why not? Oh, it's number 5. Ooh. Come alive.
Number 5.
Oh, Peter Davison.
Don't put it back in the box.
Oh, shit. Sorry. Actually, is it Peter Davison?
Well, he's number 57 now, I think.
So
number 5 was that child on the opera. No, it's Peter Bloody Davison. Sod you, Chibnall. We will number as we have to, because otherwise we just don't know where we are. Peter Davison, I grew up with Peter Davison's Doctor. I mean, I remember St Tom Baker, but it was really the Davison era that I grew up with. Like David Tennant, he was my Doctor in that sense.
Absolutely. I grew up with Tom Baker, Pertwee a little, but I cite Peter Davison as just absolutely brilliant. It was such a moment when Tom Baker regenerated into him. And yeah, obviously, missed Tom Baker, but my God, Peter Davison was fantastic.
Yeah,
it really was.
I love him as an actor. I've watched All Creatures before he was in Doctor Who. I used to watch as a kid, and a very peculiar practice is well worth digging out if you can get hold of it.
Fantastic.
That's worth a tangent of the week sometime, I think.
It really is, actually.
So, interesting in this era of a very full TARDIS, 3 companions. Peter Davison came into the programme already with 3 companions, Tegan, Nyssa and Adric.
Yeah.
And it was, I think the era did suffer from it slightly as well. There was always that kind of tension about what everybody could do in each episode, although in some episodes the answer was to put them to sleep, as we alluded to previously.
Yeah, it's almost as if 3 companions is a really, really bad idea, isn't it?
Peter Davison's era began with Castrovalva, which drew on the works of M.C. Escher, the artist who draw kind of impossible topologies, staircases that went up forever, and hands drawing themselves. And So it uses this mathematical idea of recursion, the idea of things being trapped within themselves, to create a trap for the Doctor. And it's a very clever plot, very intellectual plot. And on the back of Logopolis's block transfer competition, we've got a lot of sort of big maths themes going on.
I love Christopher H. Bidmead's scripts. I love his ideas. I mean, it is very sort of more hard sci-fi than Doctor Who is used to. But, you know, it just came sort of like something so different at the time. This is a very gentle introduction to a Doctor because he is sort of immobilised for quite a big part of the story. And, of course, he's doing rather fun impersonations of previous Doctors.
I was going to say, because he is very explicitly doing those previous Doctors, and it's a little bit lumpily for me. I think I'm a bit ambivalent about this story as a whole. There's quite a lot of padding. There's a lot of carrying a box up a hillside, and and then in the citadel itself of Castrovalva, there's some interesting mystery there and some interesting design. I think I was never a huge fan of the Ainley Master, so having him reappear was not a big thrill for me. But at the time, I'm sure I loved it. I don't remember it as a kid. I think all my memories of that era are rooted firmly in the last 2 minutes of Logopolis. Before to Doomsday's next, it's space creatures and frogs. Adric has quite a lot to do in this one.
Yeah, he does. And you've got Strafford Johns as the main villain, Monarch.
Well, you know what I remember from this one is the trick with the cricket ball in space.
Oh, yeah.
The Doctor sort of floating between the TARDIS and the spaceship. And I can't remember if it's physically accurate or not. He bounces the cricket ball off the spaceship, catches it, and uses the momentum.
The momentum. I think technically, if you could do that, it would be possible.
Well, of course, this is completely implausible.
I do remember watching a documentary where Mike Gatting, who's a Doctor Who fan and cricketer, obviously, had specifically commented on that he loved the Fifth Doctor.
Well, that was cricket, that's a big theme. Kinda is next. I'm so fond of Kinda on many levels.
Very, very good.
It's a very different story for Doctor Who. It's got this whole idea of cyclical time. It's got an amazingly spooky monster called the Mara who lives inside the mind, and there's some really chilling scenes inside the sort of dream space with Tegan with the tattoo and the old people, and just great, rich, wonderful story.
I think that is one of the first highlights of Davison's era. And of course, Nyssa gets sent to sleep for the entire episode.
Maybe it does gain something from thinning the ground a little bit.
Definitely does.
I like Nyssa a lot.
I do as well. And Peter Davison always said that he thought Nyssa worked best with him, you know, as a companion.
She actually had some technical knowledge, some intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've also got the descent into madness of Hindle, which
I love that.
Is so good, you know, that whole bit, you can't fix people, you know.
Adric's kind of having to play along that kind of slight hostage situation.
Yeah.
It's all really tense, really.
Yeah, it is very, very good. It's a real standout of the season.
And that kind of slightly clunky in retrospect, but that cabinet that you get locked into was quite terrifying as well.
Yeah, very much. And of course the old woman and that whole cliffhanger, you know, it's rather wonderful. As with all Doctor Who, the sort of rubber monster bit is a bit rubbish, but on the DVD they rejig the effects and it looks great now, so I don't think there's really a single problem with that story.
I just have the ability to look past those to a certain extent.
I always think that, you know, I mean, the rat doesn't spoil my enjoyment of Talons.
No story is without some Achilles heel, usually a rubber one. The idea of trapping it in the circle of mirrors is gorgeous as well. Really
very good.
Fun memories of Kinda. Also, The Visitation, which is next, a pseudo-historical...
Yeah, and a wonderful performance from Michael Robbins.
I'm really impressed the way you remember those names.
Yeah, I know, it's a gift. Really interesting monsters. I mean, they're not particularly well realised.
I like them.
What the
Pteroleptils,
Pteroleptils. I don't think they're that well realised, but I think they're great.
But also the death of the sonic screwdriver that's almost like killing a companion.
I know, and it's quite amusing. Sort of Peter Davison said, I feel like you've just called off an old friend.
Black Orchid is an actual historical and uses doubling to have Nyssa have an identical twin, which I think there's sort of some rule that after a certain amount of time, every science fiction series must do an episode with identical copies. Yeah. Mind you, we did it in Inferno as well already.
We also did it in Enemy of the World.
Enemy of the World, yeah. God, we didn't even wait that long. No, it's food fun. There's the Charleston. Peter Davison gets a game of cricket.
Yeah.
Next is Earthshock, which really did kill a companion, and it was a big event at the time.
It really
It's
was.
also, I think, a really great story. I think episode 1 especially is just dripping with atmosphere.
Well, the payoff at the end of the episode, I remember being, wow, they brought back the Cybermen.
I don't remember if this is an actual memory or if it's something I've kind of confabulated, but I think I didn't know who the Cybermen were. I think there's so many strong moments, visuals. The creepy robots in the caves.
They're really good.
All of that, the music in that build up. The way they turn you into pizza, it's horrible.
Props to John Nathan Turner, of course, because he was offered the Radio Times cover and refused it. I mean, the publicity would have been great, but, you know, to keep that cliffhanger, you know, that was something else. I have a very specific memory of this story because I watched all 3 episodes, really loving it, but I had to watch the last episode on my portable TV. I got a portable black and white television. The speaker had stopped working. So I watched the entire last episode in black and white and in complete silence, and I never got to see it till about maybe 10 years later, and I didn't know that the credits were silent. I think John Nathan Turner had taken that idea from Coronation Street, where a character had been killed and they played the credits silently.
The other thing in Earthshock, which I think is often overlooked, is I think it pulls off one of the most wonderfully gorgeous visual effects I've seen in the series, the classic series. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, are you talking about the Cyberman coming through the door? That is amazing.
Beautiful. They have some gobbledygook about shifting the molecular structure of a door. They get a Cyberman halfway through the door and then freeze the door, and you get this sort of vac form Cyberman half in and half out the door.
Never seen that done since.
They do it in Doom, the movie of Doom.
Oh, right.
They have this sort of molecular barrier that they half trap a creature and it's still kind of wriggling around.
So damn good.
It's brilliant. Yeah. And just that nick of time absolutely crystallised in visual form.
Yeah.
Time Flight next. I haven't seen Time Flight for years, so eventually I'll get to it in my rewatch. What is it about stories with time in the title? And Anthony Ainley's back from Angels and Berman with a new costume. And am I right in thinking that nobody ever sees him as the wizard, so there's no point in him being disguised?
There's literally no point in him being disguised.
Just because that's what he does now. Arc of Infinity I really enjoyed at the start of the season. They had location filming in Amsterdam, so much of that was made of Peter Davison running around with Rice Krispies falling off his face.
Basically, I think that's where the budget all went in Amsterdam.
On Rice Krispies?
Yeah.
I like the chicken monster. People were hating on the Ergon or Egron, but I was quite fond of it. But I remember at the time, I think I must have had a video recorder, presumably on a repeat, because I don't think I had one in 83, but the sort of negative flickering effect when the little chicken monster fired its gun and sent you into the antimatter world. I remember being fascinated by that and sort of freeze framing it. So Snake Dance is the sequel to Kinda. A less successful sequel, I think it's fair to say. But
yeah, I would say so. But
strikingly has a very young Martin Clunes in it, who went on to bigger and better things. Then it's followed by the Turlough trilogy. And I liked Turlough a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much I'll enjoy him in revisiting the character, but I really was quite fascinated by this idea of a companion who was actually a double agent, if you like.
It's a really nice idea, but unfortunately it completely runs out of steam after the initial trilogy.
So yeah, Terminus follows, and I liked this one again at the time. I think it stands up less well, but it's Nissa's final story. It's a good atmosphere in it, I think.
There was a version of it where they were going to have Louise Jameson and the Ice Warriors in it.
Right.
I was sorry to see Nissa go. I did like her as a companion.
Sarah Sutton's done a lot of Big Finish, and that's been really lovely to hear the character of Nissa expand and deepen.
Exactly. I mean, if there's a gap, fill it.
I've run out of clips. You can't make any more gap jokes.
Mind the gap.
This sort of dark Turlough, if you like, this trilogy rounds out with Enlightenment, which is another just beautiful visual idea. Sort of sailing ships in space.
Yeah, and it's one of those stories where they actually did the lighting quite well. You know.
Yeah, it's nice and moody. The sort of the underdecks of the ship feel very good in that BBC costume drama way.
Very much.
And there's resolution of the Black Guardian, White Guardian, Turlough trying to kill the Doctor trilogy is pretty good, I think.
I think it's good, yeah.
He has to make a choice. The Doctor's won him over by just being with him and being good.
But I did like the relationship Tegan had with the Eternal. He found her fascinating.
It's sort of nicely creepy. The scale of his interest in her, the kind of bug under the microscope. So we return to Earth for the King's Demons, which sees another master plot, but also technically a new companion. We have Chameleon.
I really liked Chameleon at the time. I thought that was a really cool idea. And let's be honest, he was a shape-shifting robot.
I was 10, what's not to like?
Yeah, I mean, why not sort of still have him there? He could basically just be something else.
Then we have the anniversary special, The Five Doctors. And I think if there's a story that hits the Romp monitor hard, it's that one.
It's so fun though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just contrived and I don't know, still manages to be kind of atmospheric, all the kind of ticky-tocky music. And
I agree. It's it's set on Gallifrey. It's contrived. It's sort of it buggers about with Gallifrey and history.
Nobody should do that ever.
Yeah, complete contrived nonsense.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if anybody did that nowadays,
yeah,
you can imagine we'd be talking about it very strongly. Then Peter Davison's final season 21, starts with Warriors of the Deep, which is it's a show of highs and lows, isn't it? You've got the high of the final moment with There Should Have Been Another Way, which is a great bit of kind of plot twist, and seeing remorse and the Doctor having to destroy an enemy he would much rather have found a peaceful solution for. It's sort of retreading the same ground with that race as well.
And doesn't he look like he's been through the ringer?
Great
sort of,
acting.
he really looks as if, he's so harrowed by this entire thing. I think that is a story that, with more subdued or flickering lighting, some rust marks on the walls, things like that, would be wonderful.
Sack the sea base cleaners and everything's rosy.
Yeah, basically. It's really a story that just needs a little bit of fine-tuning.
It's probably the epitome of the too brightly lit and too bland. And I think Davison's Doctor gets accused of being bland, and that's not him.
No.
Again, this is the Doctor being the public face of the show and getting blamed for the production failing. I'm not sure why there is this kind of overlighting going on. The sea base plot, the kind of double agents, the political paranoia, they're all really strong.
Loved it. I mean, although it's set in the future, it's a very 80s
very Cold War
thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's the whole thing of sci-fi, reflecting the times in a way, isn't it? The Awakening, a pseudo-historical... I remember being very struck by this creature being revealed behind the brick wall.
Yeah.
Now, the last 4 stories for Peter Davison, I would argue, are a good, strong trajectory. I don't think Frontios is very well regarded, but I'm really fond of it.
Yeah, it's funny, because, again, it's Christopher H. Bidmead that wrote that, and, there's some great moments, and it's a really clever story.
I like the Tractators.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I worked with one of them. I didn't even realise. He was a movement director on a show I did years later. Student Speed.
So I just have this image.
No, in the costume.
The
I didn't recognise him. I liked the Gravis. I liked the whole using gravity. The destruction of the TARDIS was really shocking.
Was a really good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
The only thing that fucking survives is that bloody hat stand.
But then Turlough wielding that as a weapon was quite clever as well.
No,
I liked Turlough's relationship with, is it Nora? I can't remember the character's name.
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing about blowing through the hole in the coin.
Again, this is one set utopia type time, because this is a colony in the very far future when humanity's sort of more or less on the brink of extinction. I think the Doctor even says, "Don't tell the Time Lords I was here," or something,
So Resurrection of the Daleks follows. And in, I think, 45-minute episodes, is that right?
This was them experimenting for Colin Baker's era, because that's basically what ended up happening in Colin Baker's era. This takes everything I just said about Warriors of the Deep. The place is run down, it looks as if nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah, it's dark.
That's I think why it works so well.
The first minute and a half or so, the opening sequence, I think, from the sort of establishing shots in these back alleys of London to the massacre in the streets to the appearance of the spaceship, it feels cinematic.
It does,
it's
really
a lovely
does.
opening.
And of course, this is Terry Molloy's first appearance as Davros. He's played Davros in Big Finish quite a few times. Specifically mention I, Davros, because it is a wonderful piece of drama.
Like the origin story.
Yeah, and this, he's fantastic. He's manipulative. He's also quiet, a bit more quiet than the usual ranty version, which is good. This is the episode where Tegan leaves.
Planet of Fire sees the introduction of Perry. Chameleon also is sort of finished
written
off,
out.
having not had a chance to do much of anything. I like the idea of the Master miniaturising himself by accident.
It was quite funny. I actually think Anthony Ainley's not bad in this one.
Let's talk about Turlough for a bit. I think he's been a new sort of companion in the sense that obviously he comes in, he's meant to be a schoolboy, but he's not. And that sort of just sits, and it's kind of swamped by his being set out to kill the Doctor for the first while, and then by the time that's dealt with, he's just part of the crew. And now it kind of comes back in bunches with a little bit of seeding in front of us. He talks about his people and so on.
Yeah.
But we suddenly meet his people and he goes home. It's a nice completion for an arc.
Could it have been affected by tangential deviation coming out of the warp ellipse?
Ooh, that smells a lot stronger around here.
Can I also just point out one thing about the Davison era, especially the Davison era, that seems bizarre? Companions only once change their clothes.
Oh god, the costume thing.
Yeah. I mean, Turtle was in that fucking schoolboy outfit throughout. Nissa and Tegan are in their outfits for the entire first season. The only reason Tegan changes her bloody outfit is because she's
popped home.
You know, the TARDIS must stink. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the sound of drums. The Master had aged the Doctor up, and he was in the doghouse on board the Valiant for a year. And I always remember watching it with Connor going, that place must stink of pish.
We were talking about how Graham's search for the toilet, possibly the first acknowledgement of certain bodily functions.
Actually, it turns out I was wrong.
Of course.
Bill Potts asked where the toilet was. So, I mean, Jesus, who would want to sit on board the Valiant with a nose block?
Maybe as well as translating, the TARDIS has another gift.
That was me slightly getting off topic again, but yeah, I always found it really bizarre.
It's sort of tangent of the week is Pungent.
Yeah, Pungent, yeah.
So Peter Davison's era ends with, I would argue, his finest story, Caves of Androzani.
Absolutely.
His performance, the cliffhanger to part 3, is one of my all-time favourite moments of Doctor Who. Yeah. Davison's just so on fire, visceral, energetic. He's sort of fierce. He's determined. He's heroic.
Yeah.
It is just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And the end of the era with his regeneration, self-sacrifice is, so sweet.
It is one of the greatest moments in Doctor, that I'm not going to let you stop me now.
Yeah.
And, you've got such a great villain in Sharis Jack.
Yes.
A real powerful performance. It's very Shakespearean. I mean, even got Shakespearean asides in it. All the characters are really on top form. That whole thing, he's only just met Perry, but he is going to sacrifice himself for her. And that's the Doctor, that's the wonderfulness of the Doctor. It doesn't matter who it is, they're important. I remember years ago I used to sort of slag it off because I was a lot younger. Just to be awkward. No, seriously, it was one of those fans, oh no, I'm going to be, contrary about this. And, I fully admit I was being a dick, because I don't think there's anything to dislike in this story.
I mean, the Magma Beast is a weak spot, but we talked about that previously.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, it serves its purpose. And you were quite right. There was a bit of physical jeopardy, but it wasn't so necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pointless bit, but, it's something I completely ignore.
Just to make the tunnels a bit more dangerous, I guess the abstraction of the mud blasts wasn't enough jeopardy, perhaps.
Great regeneration as well. The last words of the Fifth Doctor is Adric.
Yes.
That he's still never been able to forgive himself.
There's the sense of the struggle where you get all the flashbacks to the enemies. I mean, the sort of template of it was set for Logopolis, with enemies all going Doctor, and then the companions all going Doctor. But this one, it's more, live.
These have all been filmed specifically as well,
Yeah, the Logopolis ones were culled from the archive, but these were filmed specially, weren't they?
In the commentary of the DVD, it's Harper, Davison and Nicola Bryant, and they point out the bit that when, I think it's Perry, falls into the Spectrox nest, it's a trampoline, and she bounces. You see it bounce.
I've never spotted that, and I hope I don't spot it.
Hilarious.
I'm never going to unsee it.
Lovely era, one of my favourites, and it's one I revisit quite often.
I'm loving watching old Tom Baker's, but I will be quite happy when I get to the Davison era as well.
Yeah.
It's the end. But the moment has been prepared for.
9 times out of 10.
Thank you so much for listening to us rambling on. We're going to be slowing down a bit now that we've completed a season of Doctor Who, but we will be continuing. We've got lots of ideas for new things to talk about. If you've any feedback or questions, or if you're your own grandfather, then we can be reached at randomizerpodcast@gmail.com.
And of course you can reach us on Twitter at randomizerpod, and in both cases that's randomizer with an S,
not
a Z. It's become a fucking connection. Yeah, and of course, Caves Van Zanny has the character that's in Who lore as only sort of next to the Brigadier.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Professor Jackage Newistaffe.
What?
They mentioned Professor Jackage earlier in the episode, who developed a serum. Now, at the very end, when he's regenerating, Pierre Davison says, "I see Professor Jackage knew his stuff." Good old Jackage, right? But me, back in whatever year this was, 1984 or whatever, heard it as, "I see Professor Jackage Newistaffe." Good old Jackage. And I spent years thinking that this was a Doctor Who character akin to some like the Brigadier, trying to find out what fucking story Professor Jackage Newistaffe appeared in.
Big Finish spin-off in the making.
I'll give that to Big Finish for free because I want to see the further adventures of Professor Jackage Newistaffe.